The film begins late at night, where two siblings are busy playing video games together. After a while, the sister tells her younger brother that it is time to go to bed. But the boy refuses to go into his room because he believes a terrifying monster is hiding inside. Trying to calm him down, the sister walks into the room and carefully searches every corner. She confidently tells him that she has checked everywhere and there is absolutely no monster in the room. But suddenly, the door slams shut on its own. The boy, who is standing outside, hears a horrifying growl coming from inside. Moments later, a terrifying monster bursts out of the room and starts chasing the frightened boy through the house. Just when the tension reaches its peak, the scene suddenly changes. It turns out the entire sequence was only a movie being watched by a group of children inside a theater. Among the kids watching the film are Marshall and his friend. The movie is so scary that Marshall's friend cannot handle it anymore. Feeling overwhelmed, he quickly gets up from his seat and walks out of the theater. Marshall immediately follows him outside to check on him. As soon as they step outside, his friend begins breathing heavily and nervously pulls out his inhaler to calm himself down. Marshall looks at him in confusion and asks why he is so terrified. He reminds him that Halloween is just next Sunday, and if he keeps getting scared of this easily, how will he ever enjoy it? Soon after, the two boys go to meet their friend, a girl who owns a small antique shop. When they arrive, she suddenly jumps out at them wearing a werewolf costume, trying to scare them as a joke. After having some fun with them, she eventually heads back home. Marshall then turns to his frightened friend and tells him that the only way to overcome fear is to face it directly. To prove his point, he challenges him to do something brave. He dares him to walk up to Mr. Kaboot's house and ring his doorbell. All the children in the neighborhood avoid Mr. Kaboot because they believe he is a dangerous killer. Even so, Marshall's friend slowly gathers enough courage and walks up to the door. Just as he is about to ring the bell, Mr. Kaboot suddenly appears right behind him. Completely terrified, the boy screams and runs straight back to Marshall. After that frightening moment, the two boys returned home. Later that night, Marshall is sitting at home when his mother invites her boyfriend over for dinner. The atmosphere quickly becomes uncomfortable for Marshall, who clearly dislikes the man. As the dinner continues, Marshall becomes increasingly upset and eventually storms away from the table in anger. A short time later, his mother comes into his room and gently tells him that she wants to move on with her life. After saying this, she quietly leaves the room. Not long after, Marshall suddenly hears his walkie-talkie crackle to life. It is his friend calling him. The boy urgently tells Marshall to look out the window. Since their houses are close to each other, Marshall quickly runs to the window and looks outside. From there, he can clearly see Mr. Kaboot's house. To his surprise, he notices two men carrying a large wooden box into Kaboot's home. Watching this, his friend immediately panics and assumes that the box must contain a dead body. But Marshall pauses for a moment and calmly suggests that it could simply be a statue. After all, Mr. Kaboot is known for behaving strangely. The next day, Marshall and his friend meet one of their classmates and tell her everything they saw the previous night. The girl listens carefully and explains that she dreams of becoming a reporter someday, but nothing exciting ever seems to happen around them. Soon after, their class went on a field trip to the local museum. While exploring the exhibits, the three kids noticed something unusual. One of the displays contains an ancient mummy inside a coffin. However, right beside it sits another coffin that is completely empty. The girl quickly realizes something strange is going on. If there were two coffins, that means there were originally two mummies. Their teacher soon confirms this suspicion and explains that the second mummy was recently stolen. According to the story, the two mummies belonged to a couple who were deeply in love when they were alive. Their families tried to keep them apart, but after they died, they were buried together so that nothing could ever separate them again. But now, Someone has stolen one of them. After leaving the museum, Marshall begins to suspect that Mr. Kaboot might be responsible for stealing the mummy. When the girl hears this, she immediately becomes very serious. She starts asking questions about the large box they saw at Kaboot's house. She wants to know how big the box was and how many people it took to carry it. After hearing Marshall's answers, she begins to believe that the stolen mummy might actually be hidden inside that box. The three kids quickly come up with a daring plan. That very night, when Mr. Kaboot leaves his house, they sneak into his basement to investigate. Marshall's friend is still terrified, so he stays close to a small lamp in the basement. While nervously looking around, he suddenly notices a large wooden box covered with a dusty sheet. Slowly, he walks toward it and carefully pulls the sheet away. The moment he sees what underneath is, he freezes in shock. Inside the box lies a mummy's coffin. Completely stunned, he steps closer and notices a strange locket hanging around the mummy's neck. Curious, he slowly reaches out to take a better look. But the moment he touches it, the mummy suddenly falls forward on top of him. The boy screams in panic and runs straight to Marshall. At that exact moment, the light from the nearby lamp shines directly onto the locket. Something strange begins to happen. The mummy slowly starts to move, as if it is coming back to life. When the kids return to the basement, the coffin is completely empty. The mummy has vanished. Marshall and the girl assume that the frightened boy imagined everything. But suddenly, the mummy appears right in front of them. Terrified, the three children run upstairs as fast as they can. The mummy quietly follows them. However, instead of attacking, it simply picks up the flashlight that the boy dropped earlier and politely returns it to him. Seeing this, the girl realizes something important. The mummy is not dangerous at all. Just then, they hear the sound of Mr. Kaboot's car pulling outside. Quickly, the kids rush out of the house before he can see them. When Kaboot later goes down to the basement, he is shocked to find that the coffin is empty. The mummy has disappeared, and this deeply disturbs him. Outside, the children notice that the mummy continues following them wherever they go. Since they cannot leave it wandering around the neighborhood, they decide to hide it at Marshall's house. Once inside, Marshall tries to treat the mummy like a guest. He even offers pizza and hot sauce. At first, the mummy looked confused, but soon it began to enjoy the spicy hot sauce. Watching this reminds Marshall of an old friend named Harold who used to love spicy food. Because of that, Marshall decides to give the mummy a name. From that moment on, the mummy is called Harold. The next morning, Marshall's mother leaves for work. Before heading to school, Marshall warns Harold to stay inside the house and not go anywhere. But curiosity quickly gets better than the mummy. Harold wanders outside and notices a passing bus. On the side of the bus is a picture of a beautiful Egyptian princess. The moment Harold sees her face, memories from his past begin to return. She was the love of his life long ago. He reaches out toward the picture, but unfortunately, one of his bandages gets caught on the bus. As the bus begins to drive away, Harold is dragged behind it through the street. Later that day, when the kids return home from school, they immediately realize that Harold is missing. Worried, they began searching everywhere for him. Meanwhile, Harold eventually ends up at the local museum. After seeing another image of the princess, he walks inside the building. When the kids arrive at the museum, they suspect Harold might be inside. They carefully enter and search through the exhibits. Eventually, they find him wandering near the displays. Trying not to attract attention, they secretly sneak Harold out of the museum. Now they realize they cannot simply leave him alone anymore. The three kids decide to take Harold to the antique shop owned by their friend. The shop owner examines the mysterious locket around Harold's neck and takes a photo of it. She explains that there is ancient writing engraved on the locket and promises to translate it for them. Meanwhile, Mr. Kaboot meets with the woman who helped him steal the mummy from the museum. But when he explains that the mummy has disappeared, she becomes furious. Kaboot tries to explain what happened, But she interrupts him and coldly says that she needs the money soon. Without listening to his excuses, she orders him to leave. Back at the antique shop, the owner finally finishes translating the ancient writing on the locket. She explains that the message reveals something important. Moonlight is what brings the mummy back to life. However, there is also a terrible warning. If Harold does not return to his coffin within 3 days, his body will slowly turn into dust forever. The children realize that Harold has already been alive for 2 days. That means there is only 1 day left to save him. Without wasting a second, they rushed back to Mr. Kaboot's basement. But when they arrive, they discover something shocking. The coffin is gone. Kaboot has already moved it somewhere else. Back in the basement, Mr. Kaboot discovers something important lying on the floor. It is the inhaler that belongs to Marshall's friend, and the boy's name is clearly written on it. The moment Kaboot sees it, he immediately realizes what happened. The child must have stolen the mummy from his basement. While the kids are busy planning what to do next, Kaboot suddenly arrives with several men from his gang. They surround the children and begin questioning them. Marshall stays surprisingly calm and boldly tells Kaboot that the mummy is standing right behind him. Confused, Kaboot slowly turns around. To his shock, Harold is standing there. Suddenly, the mummy springs into action and violently throws Kaboot's men aside like rag dolls. Taking advantage of the chaos, the kids escape together with Harold. Soon after, they run into one of Marshall's mother's friends, who tells them something very important. The missing coffin has been moved to the local ice cream factory. Realizing they need help, the kids decide to find the antique shop owner. Unfortunately, she is currently attending a festival in town, so the children rush there to find her. Meanwhile, Kaboot learns that the kids are at the festival and quickly heads there as well. At the crowded festival, the children finally find the shopkeeper and explain the situation. But just as they begin to talk, Kaboot and his gang suddenly arrive and block their path. In the middle of the chaos, one of Kaboot's men manages to grab the locket from Harold's neck. The moment the locket is removed, Harold instantly collapses and turns back into a lifeless corpse. Kaboot quickly takes the mummy and leaves with it. Marshall and the others immediately chase after him. Eventually, Kaboot reaches the ice cream factory, where he meets a mysterious buyer. He proudly presents the mummy and agrees to sell it for a large amount of money, but Marshall and his friends already have a plan. They know Harold must return to his coffin before time runs out, or he will turn to dust forever. The only problem is that Harold is frightened and unsure about going back inside the coffin. Marshall encourages him and convinces him that it is the only way to survive. Slowly, Harold gathers courage and begins walking forward. Just then, Kaboot's men grab Marshall and capture him. At the same time, Marshall's friend swings down from above on a hanging rope, trying to reach the stolen locket. After a tense struggle, he manages to grab it and tosses it toward Marshall. Marshall quickly catches the locket and throws it toward Harold. The moment the locket lands around Harold's neck, the mummy instantly comes back to life. Now fully revived, Harold unleashes his strength and begins attacking Kaboot's gang. One by one, he throws them across the factory floor. With the villains defeated, the kids quickly tied them up and rushed Harold back to the museum. Once inside, something incredible happens. The second mummy, Harold's long-lost love, slowly comes back to life as well. The two mummies finally reunite and warmly embrace each other after centuries apart. After sharing their emotional reunion, they peacefully lie down together inside their coffins, ready to rest forever. Soon afterward, the news reported a strange and mysterious event. The missing mummy has somehow returned to the museum on its own and quietly laid back inside its coffin. Meanwhile, Kaboot and his gang are arrested for their crimes. Back at home, Marshall begins to see his mother's boyfriend in a different way. He realizes that the man truly cares about his mother and wants to protect her. Slowly, Marshall accepts him, and they begin to form a real bond. In the end, the family decides to move forward together and live happily. The story concludes with everyone finally finding peace.